Hello, I'm metabolic health practitioner and coach Peter Cummings with Plan to Peak, and this video lesson revolves around cardiorespiratory fitness. What is it? Why do we assess it? And how we use that information to guide exercise prescription, but also our way of measuring your progress. So first, let's talk about what cardiorespiratory fitness is. So when you think about cardiorespiratory fitness, you need to think about um, oxygen and getting to your muscles via your heart and lungs and your vascular system, delivering that oxygen. But also, you need to understand there needs to be an absorption of that oxygen and the utilization of that energy at the cellular level. And then there's byproducts from our metabolism that need to be expelled, like CO2 or carbon dioxide. So what we're really measuring when we're talking about cardiorespiratory fitness, and this may tell you a little bit about why it's important, is our heart and lungs and muscles' ability to use oxygen and turn it into chemical energy that can be used for mechanical purposes. So we can be mobile and go throughout our life working, playing, completing activities of daily living, and so on. It is one of the most powerful health markers we know of, and it is the very best predictor of mortality. People, all things being equal, people that have very low cardiorespiratory fitness have the highest risk of mortality, where the people that are the most fit have the actual lowest risk of mortality. So it's not only a predictor of mortality, it's also a predictor of insulin resistance development and risk of metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, and type 2 diabetes. So this is a very important marker of health. So how and why do we assess these things? So we use either a 6-minute walk test. You may have found that in your exercise onboarding that you can do a 6-minute walk test. But if you didn't want to do that, we have non-exercise testing methodology that we can use. Both are quite accurate, actually. But whatever we use, we're going to stick with that. And what this tells me is one, that classification. Are you very poor? Are you poor? Do you have fair or good or excellent or maybe even superior cardiorespiratory fitness? This is what we want to move up. We want to increase that raw number or the unit of measurement, but we also want to see you move up through the classifications. And the units that we use are either what's called a MET-max or metabolic equivalent of task maximum, or a VO2 max, which is measured in milliliters of oxygen per kilogram of body weight per minute. So you may hear me use these things interactively or interchangeably, but the MET is a big deal within our conversation, because a MET can convert any task into an intensity equivalent. And that's important when you're trying to figure out if you can count shoveling or raking or gardening or your walks or playing with grandchildren or whatever the case may be towards your activity and exercise goals. In many cases, they can be, but you need to know how to do that. So these are the methods and the reporting methods that we use. And here's a picture of the classifications. So, I've dealt with many people that have very poor cardiorespiratory fitness when they begin. But we very quickly see them starting to climb this pyramid and move towards higher and higher levels of cardiorespiratory fitness. Now, we will have a hard number, this MET-max number or VO2 max number, to compare. But each one of these classifications have ranges for those numbers, so you'll be able to know when you can count on moving into a higher classification. And as mentioned, reducing your risk of mortality and reducing your risk of many chronic conditions. So I mentioned this metabolic equivalent of task, or MET. So it can be a little intimidating, but it's not supposed to be. It's meant to be actually a way of streamlining our conversation regarding activity or many different exercises into this concept of intensity or oxygen utilization. So the best way to understand that is when you're sitting quietly, you have a minimum amount of oxygen that your body needs, your tissues, your cells need to stay alive. That level of oxygen utilization is 3.5 milliliters of oxygen per kilogram. So if just by chance you weighed 100 kilograms and you were at rest on your lazy boy, you could calculate that you're using 350 milliliters of oxygen per minute because you have 100 kilograms of weight. So this allows us to equate different activity levels with oxygen utilization, which in turn means how much intensity you're using. Because as you may know or may have realized, as you work harder, you breathe heavier, your heart rate goes up. And what's going on is you're using more oxygen. So when we wash dishes or take a shower or get dressed, we're up in that 2 to 2.5 MET level. This would be considered a light intensity. For some people, if you have very poor cardiorespiratory fitness, this may be part of your prescription, is just get up and do these chores on a regular basis, do these things on a regular basis, short walks, just increasing your activity. Because if your cardiorespiratory fitness is poor enough, this is exercise. And that's a really important part of this whole lesson is cardiorespiratory fitness assessment allows me to make sure that the prescription provided to you is appropriate. And what makes it appropriate is it is personalized and it will be effective at giving you just enough stress to help you respond and adapt with higher levels of fitness, but not overdo it so that it becomes toxic or can become burdensome. We need a prescription that allows you to gradually progress and advance to higher levels of fitness. And overdoing it is not the way to do that. So in moderate intensity exercise, we start looking at 4 or 5 METs. So that's 4 times more oxygen than you would be using if you were sitting in your lazy boy, or double what might be used if you were just getting dressed, taking a shower, washing dishes, and so on. And then there's vigorous activity when we start to see things like circuit training when you're doing resistance training. Some of you may get a workout from me where I'm trying to stimulate both your heart and lungs, but also your muscles at the same time. This is a vigorous intensity exercise where you move from one resistance exercise, say a squat, to the next resistance exercise with very limited rest, maybe a bench press, and then you move on to the next one with very limited rest, and you do a pull down for your back. So as you move through this circuit, you'll be using 8 to 10 times more oxygen than you would be at rest. So this is how the MET system helps us. And you can find MET tables online. Just Google it, search it, and you will find that basically any type of activity of daily living can be converted into a MET level. And when I prescribe you maybe 15 MET hours per week, and I'll explain to you how that works, you can help fill in the blanks of how those 15 hours of MET hours are utilized. How do we reach that goal? And this is how we make not only exercise, but activities of daily living fit into a proper lifestyle prescription for exercise. So when I prescribe, I'm using this number to classify and define what your maximum is, but I'll also be then able to determine the optimal training load that will not overload you more than you're capable of handling. So this will enable me to tailor both the intensity, frequency, and duration, which makes up your training load, and make sure that it stays manageable so that we reduce the risk of injury, upper respiratory infections, immune system responses, burnout, lack of motivation, and so on. Because if we prescribe appropriately, you will find that your exercise program will begin to provide you the metabolic health and overall health and fitness benefits that you were hoping to achieve. And this is why the assessment is so important. So, as I mentioned in one of the previous lessons about why exercise is important to your health, exercise stimulates glucose uptake, and this uptake is independent of the need to take in glucose from insulin. So it actually starts to improve insulin sensitivity and glucose tolerance through exercise in and of itself. And it will improve your ability to burn body fat and burn glucose to decrease how much glycogen is being stored, and your body will try to replenish that. And in this process, energy will be moved in a healthy way throughout your muscles and your liver and throughout your fat cells in your body. And this is what helps build lean tissue, improve your metabolic profile, increase your metabolic flexibility so that you can burn more fat, so you're not constantly needing to burn glucose to do exercise. And it will prevent many different chronic diseases such as diabetes and heart disease and things like that. It reduces inflammation and provides stress relief as well. So fitness is a huge component of your overall metabolic health prescription. So as I suggested, I will be calculating your actual fitness level in your classification, and using that information, I will be able to determine what is the appropriate overall training load. So I suggested 15 MET hours a week. Well, what does that mean? Well, you saw that moderate activities such as walking is 4 METs. And if the goal for the week was 15 MET hours, okay, you could meet that goal by walking for 3.5 or 3.75 hours over the course of that whole week. So that may turn into 30-minute walks every day for the course of the week. And if you were to do that, you would be meeting the overall training load for your current fitness level, because you would be hitting somewhere right around 15 MET hours for the week. Now, if you don't like to walk, we could do resistance training. And as I suggested, if you did a circuit training at 8 METs for an hour, you would only need to do 2 hours for the whole week to achieve 16 MET hours, because as I suggested, it was approximately 8 to 10 METs, and that'd be for 1 hour. So if you were to do a resistance routine, a circuit routine, 30 minutes, 4 times a week, you would also achieve your training load. So as you get fitter, we would reassess. We would determine whether the fitness improved. We would change that load based on your capabilities and what you can handle. We may add a little walking in. We may add a few exercises and change your resistance routine to 40 minutes rather than 30 minutes. But you'll be working with me to determine your needs and your tastes and what you have available, conveniently for you. Some people don't like to go to gyms. Other people love to go to the gym. So I will work with you to determine how that overall training load looks as far as your personalized prescription, but it will be based off of an assessment and your classification to determine what is the appropriate load to make sure that we're not overloading you. Okay? And the results really are profound. So when you put nutrition, exercise, proper sleep, and stress management, you really can change your being. We will be regularly assessing you so that we can adjust your program to ensure that the program stays appropriate. Okay, so if your fitness improves, okay, your capabilities have changed. And if I were to give you the same exercises that I gave you 6 months ago, you would find them to be too easy, and you would actually begin to decondition rather than get fitter. So we need to stay up with reassessments to know where you are so that I can change the prescription to make sure that it stays appropriate and make sure that it aligns with your long-term objectives of maintaining and being the best version of yourself moving forward. So in closing, just make sure that you stay engaged, make sure that the program stays personalized by doing these assessments and giving me the information that I need to make sure that it stays appropriate from a physiologic standpoint, but also motivating and fun and fits into your life. I'm here to support you and make sure that you have plenty of variety, but exercise needs to be an important part. Exercise and activity needs to be a part of your overall prescription. And I guarantee you, as you apply yourself and engage in this practice, in short term, you will wonder why you ever became sedentary, and you will know the value that staying fit brings to you and your life. Thanks, and make sure you check out some of the other lessons.